Before he was called Shaytan, before he became the single most hated figure in all of creation, he was one of the most devoted worshippers who ever existed. So devoted that some scholars say he lived among the angels themselves, despite never being one of them. This is the story of Iblis, how the most obedient being in all of existence became the first to ever disobey, and what that single choice reveals about how anyone, no matter how devoted, can fall. Everything in this video comes directly from the Quran, primarily Surah Al-Baqarah and Surah Al-A'raf, which describe this exact event in detail. This isn't a story invented later, added by storytellers over time. It's described as the very first act of disobedience in all of creation, setting the pattern for everything that follows throughout human history afterward. Iblis was a jinn, created from smokeless fire, not an angel created from light. But his devotion was so extraordinary that several classical commentators describe him worshiping alongside the angels for an extremely long period of time, some accounts suggesting thousands of years, earning a position of honor despite being a different kind of creation entirely from those around him. He is even described in some interpretations as having held a specific title of leadership among the angels he worshipped with, a level of trust and status that makes what happened next even more difficult to fully understand or explain away. According to the Quran, when Allah decided to create Adam from clay, He informed the angels in advance that He was placing a new kind of being on earth, one that would eventually inherit it. The angels, out of genuine concern rather than defiance or complaint, asked why Allah would create a being capable of causing corruption and bloodshed when they themselves constantly glorified and praised Him without fail, day and night, without rest. Allah's response was simple, direct, and left no room for further argument. I know what you do not know. Then, after forming Adam from clay and personally breathing a soul into him, Allah commanded every single being present in that gathering, every angel and Iblis among them, to prostrate before this new creation immediately, as an act of honor and acknowledgement rather than worship. Every single angel prostrated immediately, without hesitation, without question, exactly as commanded, with no complaint at all despite their earlier concern. Iblis alone refused. The Quran describes his response directly and without ambiguity. He refused out of arrogance and considered himself among the disbelievers in that single instant, despite everything he had done before it across all those centuries of sincere devotion. When Allah asked him directly why he refused to prostrate to what he had created with his own hands, Iblis gave a very specific answer, one that reveals exactly what went wrong inside him in that moment. I am better than him. You created me from fire, and you created him from clay. Notice exactly what Iblis did and didn't say in that moment. He never denied Allah's existence. He never claimed Allah lacked the authority to command him to do anything. His entire objection was based on a comparison of materials, fire versus clay, and a conclusion that his own composition made him inherently superior to this new creation. This is precisely why scholars point to this moment as the origin of arrogance itself. Not disbelief in who Allah is, but a refusal to submit despite believing in Him completely, purely because of wounded pride and a self-ranking system he invented entirely on his own, one that Allah had never actually established or endorsed in the first place. As a direct consequence, Allah expelled Iblis from his former position immediately, cursing him until the day of judgment itself, stripping away centuries of devotion in a single instant. Rather than repenting in that moment while he still had the chance to make things right and return to where he once stood, Iblis made a specific request instead. He asked to be granted respite, to be allowed to live until the day of resurrection far in the future rather than being destroyed immediately. Allah granted this request. And instead of using that extended time to seek forgiveness and correct his mistake quietly, Iblis made an open, defiant declaration right then and there in front of Allah, that he would spend that entire time trying to mislead Adam and his descendants from every possible direction, in front of them, behind them, from their right and from their left, using every method available to him. This moment marks the transition. Iblis, once among the most devoted, becomes Shaytan, a title that describes his new role rather than replacing his name entirely. An active enemy, deliberately working to mislead humanity using exactly the same tool that caused his own fall in the first place, appealing to pride, status, and the feeling of being owed more than what one has already been given by God. Every whisper described elsewhere in this series traces back to this exact origin point. An entity who fell not through ignorance of the truth, but through refusing to act on truth he already understood completely. The most important detail in this entire story might be the simplest one. Iblis didn't fall because he stopped believing in Allah. He fell because he decided in a single moment that his own judgment mattered more than a direct command he understood perfectly well and had no real argument against. That's a much smaller, much more human mistake than most people assume when they hear this story for the first time. It wasn't a dramatic loss of faith. It was a quiet refusal dressed up as logic, the kind of thinking that says, I understand better than what I've been told, so this rule shouldn't apply to me the way it applies to everyone else, which is exactly why the Quran tells this story so early before almost anything else, not as a warning about a monster from folklore, but as a warning about pride itself, aimed at every single person who assumes they're far too devoted, too knowledgeable, or too far along spiritually to ever fall the exact same way he did. If this changed how you see this story, there's more of the unseen world waiting. Next, we're covering the angels who record absolutely everything you do, every single word and action, and exactly how that record actually works from the moment you wake up until the moment you sleep. Subscribe so you don't miss it.